Simulation training is a virtual kind of modality or method of training that professionals and students that want to eventually be professionals in a certain field can use to practice, kind of apply their skills in a way that they don't need a real life situation, but they can still practice in similar to real life situations. Um, the ones I see most common, at least around campus, are the nursing majors. Even just walking in the arena, walking past all of those classrooms, I'm sure everyone sees the fake patients just sitting there sometimes with wigs on, and it kind of spooks us for a little bit. But I've spoken with a few of my nursing major friends, and they say that it's really helpful because a lot of the things that you need to practice in nursing don't always require an in-person patient or mock patient. Not only that, but it can also alleviate a lot of stress and a lot of distraction that might be there from having an in-person patient. Just because you won't have to worry about any external factors and get to just sit there and focus on what you are trying to accomplish in the task at hand. Another way that's not really related to sports, but just a virtual training that I've always recognized is driver's ed. In high school especially, a lot of my driver's ed classes had computers with wheels and pedals that we could practice our driving without having to worry about actually being on the road. And I thought that this was a great way for students to be able to practice their driving in a safe setting that doesn't put anyone at risk, and it alleviates a lot of that external distraction component because you don't have to worry about people crossing the street, people honking, other drivers, especially because my parents always said, like, I trust you, but I don't trust the other people out on the road. So that kind of eliminates that component, because you don't have to worry about putting trust in anyone else's skills other than your own. So I know for these videos I've always done running and track and field as my sport. I thought that was a little bit difficult to do for this simulation because the only one I could really think of was putting like a virtual screen on the treadmills like in the school rec but that's really the only way I could think of where it like shows you walking through a trail or hiking, or I think some of the bike machines even have the screens on them where it shows a nice scenery where you can exercise somewhere that's not the campus rec center. But the one I wanted to focus on was actually basketball because that's another sport that I played in high school, and I think that even on a basic level we see simulations of this all the time, even in arcades, because this is just a simple way for someone to go and get a little shooting practice. Even though arcades do it for fun, that doesn't mean we can still use it as genuine practice. So even something as simple as dribbling simulations, shooting simulations, something that I found it would really be helpful for is increasing court sense and awareness on the court, because you can train as much as you can build up as much muscle as you possibly can, work out every single day, twice a day, whatever it might be, but it takes a lot of insight and a lot of psychological practice to be able to have really good court sense, which I think ultimately makes a great basketball player. So having some sort of virtual simulation to be able to help you process what a game might look like, what decisions you might make, and the opportunity to, of course, go back and adjust those changes too, just because in real life scenarios, I feel like we might make a mistake and then just dwell on it and think like, oh man, I wish I could have done this differently. But in a virtual simulation, you can do things like that. So you can run a play in a virtual simulator, and if you make a mistake, you can always try it again and then just practice that exact thing. And that way you can get plays memorized, you can figure out your court sense and decision making, any patterns in your playing that you might be able to recognize. And that's just really going to help you develop as a player mentally, because like I said, you can work out as much as you can, but without that physical component, you're not going to be a fully developed, well-rounded player. But yeah, so I think in terms of playmaking, you could definitely go back and kind of reevaluate the decisions that you make. Shooting simulations, like like shooting at an actual basket simulations, those are obviously always going to be helpful because not everyone wants to go to a gym where some people aren't always focused and you might get distracted. You have to worry about retrieving your own ball, which takes time and kind of wastes time in a practice. So it's nice to just be able to have a simulation virtually that you can just practice shooting a ball, and you don't have to worry about those external factors, and you can just focus on your form. You can focus on things to improve, things to get better at. This, as well as dribbling too, I think it could help with. So I think that dribbling is something we can all just do in our free time anyway, but that's just my personal opinion, because when I was little, I was told if I want to get better, just when I watch TV, set up a chair in front of the television and dribble like in between my legs while sitting on the chair, or dribble with my left hand for 10 minutes, dribble with my right hand for 10 minutes, and that way I would kind of build up my dribbling skills. But doing this virtually with a simulator is also really great because a lot of sports physically is just muscle memory. So these are things that we can often accomplish virtually and with simulations because we don't need a real scenario to give us muscle memory. We can earn that by just doing the motion. So if we're doing this virtually with a simulation, just getting that motion down is going to already make us a better player. It's going to eliminate those external distractions. And ultimately, it's going to give us a lot better practice as an individual teammate, an individual player, and an individual athlete. So I think that's going to increase our mental component and just increase our game of play.